Versace turned South Beach into an international glamour zone.
Everybody in South Beach loved Versace. He was generous, he was a member of the community.
He was the unofficial mayor of South Beach. He loved the attention. He loved being part of this.
He often talked about how America was so much safer than Italy. He was from Calabria, which was a home of some of the mafia. If you talk about fate, you had a man on the East Coast in Miami Beach who loved America because he thought it was safe. On the West Coast, you've got a dirtbag street hustler who's making his way across the country. Andrew Cunanan always felt that he was an outsider. His father abandoned the family when he was 19 and just left the mother and Cunanan and his siblings destitute.
He went to live in the Philippines with his dad for about a month and came back to the United States complaining about the squalor that his father was living in. I think he decides at that point, on his return from the United States, it's sort of like, you know, Scarlett O'Hara saying in Gone with the Wind, right? I'll never be hungry again.
He wanted to be wealthy, he wanted to be powerful, he wanted to be admired.
And he started living by having very wealthy, elderly men support him.
Andrew's father taught him, wealthy people can give you things. Learn all about them.
And he became a pro at it.
He was very good looking. His father was Filipino, his mom was Italian. He kept in shape.
Near genius IQ, so he could talk art, music, politics.
He wanted to be secure, financially secure. He wanted to be able to take time off and, you know, just go sailing for a month or two and not have to worry about anything.
He was flown to Paris for dinner and Aspen for skiing. $800 an ounce caviar, cases of champagne. And he would send postcards to all his friends, and it was just over-the-top living.
St. John Conferat is very cute. Lots of big white villas, pretty beaches, yachts, lavish parties, prosciutto and melon for breakfast overlooking the Grand Canal. I wander through a maze of streets and bridges to Florian's, sometimes bouncing over the lagoon on a stream of sunlit foam.
Andrew thought he was using his victims, and to a degree he was, but they were using him too.
Norman Blatchford was a sugar daddy to Cunanan. He was a semi-retired businessman in his 60s.
Norman Blatchford was a very wealthy man, a patron of the arts.
And he lived in a super fabulous home overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
Cunanan moves in with Blatchford and becomes like his regular right-hand man.
Andrew got $2,500 a month from him. He bought him a car. He gave him access to his credit cards.
He's traveling to Europe, France, to Italy, to Spain. When the relationship with Blatchford ended, suddenly Andrew Cunanan's lifestyle starts to shrink.
He could not stand rejection.
He was using drugs. He had gotten sloppy and lost his looks.
Right around his mid to late 20s, all this lavishness starts to go away.
And the star was fading.
Andrew was pathologically obsessed with financial and social status, but he didn't want to earn it. He wanted to take it.
He was like a predator. He just made up whatever he thought that Mark wanted to think he was.
The two people who knew him best were Jeffrey Trail and David Madsen. Jeffrey Trail was a graduate of the Naval Academy. He never had a romantic relationship with Jeffrey Trail, but they had become friends when Trail was part of the Navy stationed in San Diego. I think Jeffrey Trail was sort of a touchstone. I mean, he was sort of something to say, he was normalcy in Andrew Cunanan's life.
David Madsen was supposedly the love of his life. Good guy, good person, up-and-coming architect in the area.
Madsen and Cunanan were like complete opposites. He had a career path, and I think Cunanan was kind of his walk on the wild side.
David was Andrew's life. He said many, many times that he would give up everything to move out to Minneapolis for David.
Did Madsen leave him?
Madsen left him. He was devastated by it. Then when Madsen broke up with him, it was just, he was depressed.
Jeffrey Trail and David Madsen were men of substance. And so I think Cunanan was kind of fun, but over time, his lack of any kind of depth or any kind of seriousness wore pretty thin on them. And so, part of the motivation for coming back to Minneapolis on that last weekend of April was an attempt to sort of reconnect with two of these very good, very close, very important people in his life who had pulled away from him.
He bought a one-way ticket. He told friends, I have business in Minneapolis. Yeah, he did, and murder was on his mind.
I think this killing spree really, strange as it sounds, started as a love story. There was speculation that maybe Madsen and Trail had a romantic relationship. I think David Madsen came to symbolize all the rejection that Cunanan had had those last few years.
People that have this level of narcissism also have acutely low self-esteem. And so as a result, people feel like you've pulled away from me, and you feel wronged, you feel shamed, and their only natural reaction is revenge. Cunanan was going on this one-way trip to kill off his past, basically.
Jeffrey Trail owned a .40 caliber Taurus semi-automatic handgun that had a case of hollow point bullets along with it. At some point, Andrew Cunanan got that gun.
If Jeff Trail would have reported the gun stolen, all this never would have happened. A lot of ifs, a lot of ifs. Cunanan was the luckiest criminal I ever chased.
Cunanan phones Trail, leaves a message on his answering machine and says, come over to Dave's apartment.
He buzzed into the apartment at 9:45-ish, went upstairs. Witnesses hear some scuffling outside and somebody saying, get the bleep out.
He beat Jeff Trail to death with a claw hammer, which is a very, very physical and personal type of homicide.
Jeffrey Trail was bashed over the head about 27 times.
There was blood spatters on the wall, on the floor. Jeff Trail's body was rolled up in a carpet, blood all over the place.
These murders were highly personal. And it's off the charts rage.
It has a very sadistic edge to it.
I think he wanted to punish Jeff.
What would have prompted this first killing in that apartment? It's up for conjecture. One of the things that we found in that apartment was that bag with the vials of steroids. Had Andrew Cunanan possibly been using steroids? Could this be explained as a roid rage kind of thing?
We had lots of rumors on Cunanan that he was out to get people that gave him the HIV virus. He did not have the virus. So you hear all this stuff. Weird reports that he was into some S&M sex. I basically decided he had an alter ego, and when he killed Jeff Trail, he flipped to that. It wasn't him anymore, and that's when his path became clear to him.
David Madsen comes back to his apartment with his dog, and there's a body rolled up in the rug.
Police believe that after the homicide of Jeffrey Trail, that Cunanan held David Madsen hostage for 2 days in the apartment with the dead body.
David Madsen, I think, becomes a captive of Andrew Cunanan's at that point.
And the two get in a car and they drive out to an isolated area outside Minneapolis.
David Madsen was marched out on the banks of that lake and shot 3 times, once in the back, twice in the head with Jeffrey Trail's .40 caliber gun. We thought, whoa, what is this? What's going on here? These 2 homicides are clearly linked, and now what?